1888, terror reigned here in the streets of Whitechapel in East London. It was a terror that didn't kill many and didn't threaten everybody, but it struck fear and horror into the hearts of an entire city. In just 4 months, all within the area of 1 square mile, 6 women were brutally murdered. But it was how they were murdered that was really shocking. Picked at random, silently strangled, and horribly mutilated. Most frightening of all was the fact that the police just couldn't catch the killer. To this day, he's known only as Jack the Ripper. His true identity is a mystery which has intrigued people for more than a century and is still the source of new theories and rumours. Jack has become a legend, but in the process, the sheer horror of his crimes has been forgotten. Jack the Ripper holds a unique position in our country's criminal history. He probably wasn't Britain's first serial sex killer, but he was the first whose crimes were recorded. He was killing at a time when the press and police were sophisticated enough to document his murderous activity in detail. And those details, the sheer gruesome depravity of Jack's crimes, were stunning. Jack's reign of terror began on the 7th of August, 1888. It was a stormy night at the end of a wet and windy summer. At 4:45 a.m, the body of Martha Tabram, a 37-year-old prostitute, was discovered in a tenement block in Whitechapel. Martha was lying on her back, her hands tightly clenched and her skirts lifted to the waist. She had been butchered, stabbed at least 39 times. News of the gruesome details of Martha's death quickly spread. Londoners had grown used to violent crime. It was part of everyday life, but they weren't used to such horrific brutality. Sickened by the savagery of Martha's death, a crowd gathered at the crime scene. They demanded that the police catch the killer immediately. The police had 2 witness accounts. Pearlie Poll, a fellow prostitute, said that she and Martha had been entertaining a couple of Grenadier Guards earlier on that evening. The local PC said he'd seen a Grenadier Guard near the scene of the crime. So the police ordered all Grenadier Guards who'd been on leave in London that night to attend an ID parade. In the days before closed-circuit television, eyewitness evidence was highly prized by the police, even if it was just a glimpse on the street. Dan, can you tell me how accurate, how actually reliable eyewitness evidence is?
But the big problem with eyewitness testimony is it's not perfect. It's not as accurate as people would like it to be. So, for example, if you see something at night in bad lighting, it's not going to be as good a memory as if you see it during bright daylight hours. And also, as time passes, it becomes more and more difficult to make accurate identifications.
All right, Rory! Sorry.
Come on, Oscar!
There's some things you can't really cope with, and it's excuse my language, Doctor.
At least he wasn't a Spurs fan.
At the time, I didn't realise it, but I was being set up. Oh, we're having fun. This was a stunt devised to test my own powers of visual recognition. 3 hours later, I was taken to a police identification room. This is genuine, and told the truth about why I was there.
I've got a confession to make.
Oh dear.
Do you remember the person who came up and interrupted us when we were filming this morning?
Come on, Oscar!
Yeah, well, vaguely.
Well, we've set up an identification parade to see if you can identify them. So would you like to be an eyewitness in our little study?
Dear, oh dear.
Take a close look at these people and go through the line. Look at them carefully. What sort of things are you trying to picture in your mind?
I was going to say he had a black hat on, but... Oh, this is terrible. Why are you doing it to me? These men just have matching hats. At the identification parade Pearlie Poll attended in 1888, she was confronted by rows of men in identical uniforms. It was tall. They're all sitting down.
Well, would you like to get a couple of them to stand up so you can see them?
Yeah, I'll try it, shall I? Number 3, could I ask you to approach the screen that's in front of you? Thanks. I was finding it difficult to identify someone just a few hours after the original sighting. Pearlie Poll had to do it after a week. OK, thanks, number 3. We now know that, as a week had passed since Pearlie Poll saw the suspect, she only had a 65% chance of identifying him again. Number 6, could you walk towards the screen and stand still for a few minutes, thanks? And to make it even harder, Poll was drunk the night she saw him. Gone off number 6, I think. Number 7, could I ask you to walk towards the screen for a second, thank you? No, I don't know about him. He's very actually, he's enormously fat. Oh, so that's my reflection. OK, thank you. And unlike Paul, I had seen the suspect in broad daylight, which should have made him easier to recognise. But I was really struggling. Four, possibly. Could I ask numbers 3, 4, 6 and 7 to shout out Rory and Arsenal? Okay, Arsenal, that's the name of a local football team. The best in Europe, some would say, all right?
Rory, Arsenal. Rory, Arsenal. Rory, Arsenal. Rory, Arsenal.
Right, you want me to choose one, don't you?
I do want you to
I'm
choose
coming
one.
down heavily. I think it's number 3 or number 7. And I think I'm going to choose number 3. Number 3, could you tell me what you're doing at 10:30 this morning?
10:30 this morning, I was doing my weekly shopping in Sainsbury's and suiting Broadway.
Damn.
Okay, so what's happened here is you've chosen somebody who is not, in fact, the person who stopped our interview.
That's thrown me. I was so convinced it was him.
I think we should let you onto a secret here.
Yeah.
None of these 7 people actually were the person who interrupted us when we were doing the interview.
And it's likely that the man who killed Martha Tabram wasn't at the ID parades held by the Whitechapel police either. Because I assumed the guy we were looking for was in here, I chose to choose one. And both the Ripper eyewitnesses made the same mistake as me. Both Pearlie Poll and the local PC picked out men they claimed to have seen on the evening of the murder. Poll, God bless her, picked out a couple, but all the men had strong alibis. 3 weeks in, and the investigation seemed to have ground to a halt, and then there was a new and entirely unexpected development. On the 31st of August, Jack struck again. The victim this time was Polly Nichols, a 43-year-old prostitute. She was alive at 2:30 in the morning when she was seen trying to earn money to pay for a bed for the night. The killer cut her throat through to the vertebrae. He opened her up with a knife to expose her intestines. Then he disappeared. Polly was found dead on the pavement just a few minutes after the killing. The doctor who examined her told the press, "I have seen many terrible cases, but never such a brutal affair as this." The mutilation of Polly's body was a horrific development. The public were appalled by the vicious nature of the crime. But there was worse to come. Jack was after victim number 3. Annie Chapman, known as Dark Annie to her fellow prostitutes, was found dead just over a week after Polly. Her body was found in the backyard of flats here in Hanbury Street. The sight that greeted local residents that morning was truly horrendous. Annie had been opened up as if someone had rooted around inside her. This time, some organs were missing. It was clear that this was a murderer unlike any other. His way of killing was so unusual that the police believed studying the method itself might give them vital leads in tracking down the Ripper. No, Nick, you're a surgeon. They say there are clues as to Jack the Ripper's identity in the actual way he mutilated his victims.
In the case of the murder of Annie Chapman, the doctor who examined the body was impressed by the fact that he had removed the womb and part of the bladder with one sweep of the knife in a comparatively inaccessible part of the body.
Right.
And
he was doing all this in the dark?
Jack the Ripper was always doing it in the dark. In one of the later murders, he actually managed to remove the right kidney under the same circumstances, and this time we know that he only took 10 minutes to do it because there was a policeman passing through the scene of the murder every 15 minutes. What he actually did was he went behind the stomach, which is this structure, and when he removed the kidney, he went between the pancreas and the spleen. He also removed a piece of large bowel that's lying in front of the kidney, took it away completely. And this is, as I say, going on in a period of about 10 minutes in the total darkness. Mostly by feel, because he's up under the rib cage here. He takes out this kidney by cutting the blood vessels very neatly there, and takes the whole kidney out without damaging it.
And in this model, it's nice and clear, everything's painted a different colour, but in real life, I presume it's going to be very different.
Real life things are very greatly different. And if we look here, this is actually a pig's kidney, but in contrast, what the Ripper actually would have seen, or more likely felt on the night of the murder, is an appearance just like this. We have the liver, Here's the pancreas coming across. The spleen's been removed in order to show the kidney, and this is the kidney itself, and it's been sectioned through, and there's some of the fat that normally surrounds the whole kidney and makes it difficult to see.
So this all points to someone who has an expert knowledge of internal organs.
Yes, I am convinced, and the doctor at the time was convinced, that the person who committed the murder had anatomical knowledge. He removed the womb in 2 cases, kidney in 1 case, and the heart in 1 case. And the way he removed the heart is also very interesting, because he didn't open the chest cavity at all. He worked entirely in the abdomen. All the Ripper's essential operations took place there. So he must have put his hand up like this, held the heart, and then divided the great vessels across at the top from below, and removed the heart down into the abdomen.
That's
and
impressive.
removed the whole thing from below. And that is as equally impressive as removing
That's incredible.
the kidney.
Could you manage that in the dark, on the street, in 10 minutes?
I certainly couldn't know.
Why do we think he was removing his organs?
Well, Jack the Ripper was probably the first recognised example of what we now call a trophy killer. He was removing them, presumably in order to relive the thrill of his crimes later on. What's interesting about the Ripper is he did this at the roadside.
Right.
The average trophy killer, someone like Jeffrey Dahmer, does it in the safety of his own home, having lured the victim back to his house. So that is a unique feature of the Ripper case, is that he was a trophy killer, removed organs, and did it out in a public place.
A communal landing, a public street, and someone's backyard. One of the most surprising things about Jack's crime was that although they were committed in public places, the killer was never seen or even heard in the act. But in choosing the East End, Jack had picked the perfect hunting ground. In the late 1800s, it was a criminal underworld riddled with poverty, where half the population lived on the breadline. It was not the sort of place where people were surprised to hear screams in the night. Life was cheap. Violence was an everyday reality. This gives a good idea of what daily life was like around here in the East End back then. This is the court register for the 16th of March, 1888. Nature of offences: sleeping in the open air, drunk and disorderly, drunken incapable, drunken obscene language, stealing a piece of pork, harbouring a prostitute. Now, prostitution was a massive problem back then. 1 in 5 women between the ages of 15 and 50 was a prostitute. Many would be forced onto the streets by hunger. A woman could sell her favours for a loaf of bread. They were easy prey for a killer like Jack the Ripper. Here was a killer with crazed instincts, but one with a calculating mind. He knew what he was doing, and he never slipped up. He left nothing behind which might help the police identify him. 1 month into the investigation, and the police were still baffled. What did they have to go on? 3 dead women killed by someone who was probably skilled in surgery, a local resident, and insane. But no likely suspect emerged from the local medics, butchers, and madmen. Meanwhile, the EastEnders worked themselves up into a state of hysteria. Women were afraid to venture out at night. Men formed vigilante groups who would patrol the streets alongside the police. But despite this increased vigilance, more murders were to follow. It was now clear to the police that they were dealing with something new. A compulsive killer. A monster who, if he wasn't caught, would kill and kill again, each time more brutally than the last. Autumn of 1888, a killer was on the loose in London. He preyed on vulnerable women, attacking them for no clear reason, mutilating them, and leaving their savaged and bloodied bodies in the streets. London was terrified, and the police completely baffled. They had no idea who the killer was, calling him simply the Whitechapel murderer. But by the autumn, they believed they had a clue that pointed to the identity of the killer. A news agency received a letter confessing to the crimes, signed Jack the Ripper. It was the first time the name had been used, and it stuck. The police followed up every line of investigation that the letter revealed, but they got nowhere. They reluctantly concluded that it was a hoax. They were back to square one. In the space of 2 months, Jack the Ripper had murdered 3 women. But on the night of September the 30th, his killing spree stepped up a pace. He murdered 2 women within minutes of each other. At 1 a.m, the body of Elizabeth Stride was found in Berners Street. Her throat had been cut, but her clothes had not been disturbed, nor was her body mutilated. This led the police to believe that Jack had been interrupted. What the police didn't anticipate was that while they were swarming around here, the site of Elizabeth's murder, Jack was busy with his second victim, Catherine Eddowes, just 12 minutes walk away. This is St Botolph's Church, known at the time as the Prostitutes' Church. Now we know that Catherine Eddowes had been arrested earlier on that night for running up and down this street drunk, impersonating a fire engine. We also know that she was released at 1:30, and she must have come straight back here because at 1:45, over there in Mitre Square, her mutilated body was found. So it took Jack just 15 minutes to pick Catherine up, kill her and leave the scene. And in that short time, he made a horribly gruesome job of it. Jack had finished off his second crime of the night in signature style. The policeman who found the body said Catherine had been ripped up like a pig in the market. She'd been disemboweled and her face had been cut open. The double murder was a huge embarrassment to the police. 5 women were dead and Jack was running rings round them. He was taking greater and greater risks and getting away with it. A serial killer who struck at random was a new and terrifying phenomenon. The police had had no previous experience of a case like this, and none of the traditional methods were proving to be of much use. Now, Stuart, the first thing that strikes me about looking at the map is how close all the murders were.
Like 3/4 of a mile, I guess, yeah. So very closely positioned together, really.
Wouldn't that make it easy for the police to find him then in such a small area?
Well, it was difficult in that initially, obviously, they didn't realise that they'd got a serial killer, if you like, on the loose. By the time they did come to grips with that, they were concentrating extra men there. But you're looking at an area teeming with thousands of people, including foreigners, immigrants, visiting sailors. It was really a very difficult area to police. Back streets, alleyways, courts, street lighting was very poor compared to today. So all these things would conspire to frustrate the police in their efforts to try and find an unknown killer.
So what didn't they have in those days, which we take for granted now in a police investigation?
Well, it's basically the advanced communications that we have today and the forensic science facilities that back up all police officers dealing with serious crime. Fingerprinting didn't really come in till the turn of the century, and although it was being developed in 1888. And blood couldn't be analysed to say it came from a human being, let alone grouped.
And I'd wager they didn't have helicopters with searchlights in
They
them.
didn't, no.
Which would have actually quite good in this area, wouldn't it?
Well, I think it might have been a help.
Did they ever think of dressing women up as prostitutes to try and ensnare him?
Well, we do have record of women working for the police as decoy victims, if you like, 1 or 2 of whom were approached, but not by the killer.
Yeah.
In fact, they were trying everything that they possibly could, really, given the limited resources.
The police decided to try out a brand new detection technique, tracking with bloodhounds. It was a radical idea, dogs had never been used by the police before, but the team on the Ripper case were desperate and willing to try anything. They borrowed a couple of bloodhounds from a breeder and tested the dog's ability to track a stranger for a mile. This is Homer, who's a bloodhound, and this is Phil, who isn't a bloodhound. Now we're going to do an experiment. A member of our production staff has been in a room leaving a smell there. Now our production staff member is hiding somewhere in this park, and Phil, what's going to happen then?
Well, Homer's got the scent of the person who was in the room. We left him in there for quite a while just so they get it. He's going to follow that scent regardless of any disturbance, and hopefully we'll find the member.
Let's go. Come on.
Come on, mate. Let it go.
Now, does Homer need a really fresh scent? Would he have to be on the scene of the crime very, very early on?
No, the sooner the better, really.
Yeah.
But he's had success after 5 hours.
Oh, he's
Good
got
boy.
something.
Yeah, he's following
he's on
something there.
Now, London was a very, very, very crowded place. It stank of who knows what. Would that have impeded a bloodhound in his work?
It wouldn't help, but they do actually follow the individual scent regardless of what's going on around.
Oh, right. So do you think it would have worked if they used bloodhounds to track the Ripper?
Well, you've got to give it a try, haven't you?
And can you tell when he's...
Yeah, look. He really wants to go.
Homer's training started when he was just 10 weeks old. In the last 2 years, Phil has concentrated on refining his natural instincts by teaching him that if he tracks a specific scent, he'll be rewarded.
Oh, good boy!
Well done!
Good boy, Homer! He's a good lad! He's a good boy!
But unfortunately, just before the Ripper police got the bloodhounds on the track, the press found out about the story. The police were ridiculed for suggesting such a strange technique, and the plan was dropped. It would be another 70 years before the police started using tracker dogs. Looking back, some experts think they might have just made the difference to the Ripper investigation. But as the police seemed to lose direction, Jack was getting ready for something special. The events of the evening of the 9th of November would secure him a place as one of the most vicious serial killers the world has ever seen. Mary Kelly was Jack's youngest victim, only 25. She was heard singing in her room at 1 a.m. The next morning, her body was discovered on the blood-soaked bed. She had been mutilated beyond recognition. Her skin stripped from her body and her abdomen emptied of its contents. One police officer said it was more like the work of the devil than of a man. Jack's reign of terror was entering a new phase, one the police were powerless to prevent. They seemed hopelessly incapable of catching him, when suddenly the killing stopped. Mary Kelly goes down in history as Jack's final victim. Now, theories abound as to why he suddenly halted his killing spree. Either he died, was committed to a lunatic asylum, fled the country, was arrested for another crime, or perhaps unlikely, he stopped before he was discovered. We'll probably never know exactly why he stopped, or indeed why he started, because, of course, we'll probably never know who he was. Perhaps at the time someone did know who the Ripper was. If so, they covered up for him and took their knowledge to the grave. Since the 1880s, the list of suspects has grown. The celebrity suspect is Queen Victoria's grandson, the Duke of Clarence. The theory is he killed the women or got a friend to do it to cover up the existence of his illegitimate child. A more likely suspect is Francis Tumblety, a doctor with a hatred of women and a fondness for collecting body parts, fitting Jack's reputation as a trophy killer. Or Montague John Druitt, who committed suicide around the time the killing stopped and whose own family believed he was the Ripper. Or George Chapman, a known killer with surgical training. Or even Aaron Kosminski, a prime suspect at the time, perhaps because he had a history of mental illness. There isn't a watertight case against any of these men, and amidst the guessing games, the true horror of Jack's crimes is in danger of being forgotten. There are many who have killed more than Jack, but there are few who, through their sheer twisted brutality, have cast such a shadow of terror over an entire city. After 6 horrific murders, Jack just disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind a traumatized community, but no clues as to his identity. Jack the Ripper has haunted public imagination ever since, as the basis of one of the blackest and bloodiest popular legends.